There is a Bible that holds forbidden truths about Jesus, secrets no church wanted you to see. For centuries, councils ordered these texts burned, declaring them dangerous heresy. But in the remote highlands of Ethiopia, devout monks guarded them with their lives. What you're about to discover will shatter everything you thought you knew about Jesus of Nazareth and reveal a story meant for your soul. You think you know the story of Jesus. You've heard the Gospels, the parables, the crucifixion. But what if I told you that the most crucial chapters were erased from history? The Ethiopian Bible, an ancient canon guarded in secrecy, holds narratives that change everything. Picture this: a dusty manuscript in a monastery, ink fading but truth burning through. This isn't just another religious text. It's a leaked document from the early church containing testimonies they tried to destroy. Why? Because the Jesus in these pages isn't the sanitized version you were taught. He's more human, more divine, and more revolutionary. The keepers of this Bible faced persecution, yet they preserved it for a time like now. You're about to enter a forbidden archive. But be warned, once you see this truth, you can't unsee it. What if everything you believe is based on a fragmented story? The true story they hid from you begins where the canon ends. Don't look away. The first revelation is coming, and it will challenge the very foundation of your faith. Stay until the end. What you're about to hear will redefine who Jesus was and why it matters to you now. To understand why this Bible is so dangerous, you must step back into the early centuries after Jesus. Imagine a world where Christianity is a fragile movement spreading across empires. Different communities have different writings, gospels, letters, revelations. There's no single Bible yet. Power struggles erupt. Who decides what is Scripture? Who gets to tell the story of Jesus? In Rome, in Alexandria, bishops gather. Their goal, unity, control. But unity often means silencing dissent. They begin to compile a canon, a list of approved books. Books that don't fit, that speak of mysteries too deep, of a Jesus too close to humanity, are marked for destruction. The true story they hid from you starts here. Councils like Nicaea become battlegrounds for truth. But far away, in Ethiopia, a different path is chosen. A kingdom converts to Christianity and receives a Bible that includes what others rejected. Why did Ethiopia keep these texts? What did they see that others feared? The answer lies in a vision of faith that embraced the full spectrum of divine revelation. You're seeing the first cracks in the official narrative, but the suppression was just beginning, and the consequences would echo for millennia. The Ethiopian Bible isn't just a collection of books. It's a portal to a cosmic drama. Within its pages, you encounter heavens layered with choirs of angels, realms of light, and a cosmology that expands your understanding of creation. Books like 1 Enoch describe the fall of the Watchers, celestial beings who rebelled and taught humanity forbidden arts. This isn't mythology, it's the backdrop against which Jesus' mission unfolds. In this worldview, Jesus isn't merely a preacher, he's the key to restoring a broken cosmos. The true story they hid from you involves a Jesus who engages with these heavenly realities. His baptism, his transfiguration, his descent into hell all gain new dimensions. You start to see that the standard Gospels are like a summary, while the Ethiopian texts provide the director's cut. Imagine standing on a mountain with Enoch, witnessing the divine throne. That's the level of revelation preserved here. But why was this considered too dangerous? Because it gives you access to mysteries that empower the individual soul. It suggests that you too can partake in this cosmic journey. The church authorities wanted a simplified, controllable narrative. Ethiopia's guarded secret offers something else, a path to direct encounter. And now you're on the verge of uncovering what that means for Jesus' true identity. But wait, the rupture that almost destroyed this truth is even more shocking. The rupture came with force. In the 4th century, as Christianity became the state religion of Rome, The need for doctrinal uniformity intensified. Councils convened and decrees were issued. Books like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and others were declared apocryphal, non-canonical, heretical, to be destroyed. Bishops ordered scribes to burn these texts. Libraries were purged. The reason? These writings contained teachings that challenged emerging orthodoxy. They presented a Jesus who performed miracles as a child, who debated with teachers in ways that hinted at deeper wisdom, who had a mission that extended beyond the Jewish world to all of humanity, even to spiritual realms. This Jesus was too potent, too unpredictable. The true story they hid from you was suppressed to maintain power. But in Ethiopia, isolated by geography and steadfast in tradition, these books were not just preserved, they were revered as scripture. While the West forgot, Ethiopia remembered. The rupture created two streams of Christianity, one pruned and controlled, the other wild and full. You are inheriting the forbidden stream, but what happened when these two worlds collided? The shock is coming, and it reveals a survival story against all odds. The aftermath of the Great Suppression echoes through history. For over 1,000 years, the Ethiopian Bible remained hidden from the wider world, protected in monasteries like those on Lake Tana or in the mountains of Tigray. Monks copied manuscripts by hand, generation after generation, knowing they carried a treasure. They fasted, prayed, and guarded against invaders, from Islamic expansions to colonial forces. These keepers believed they were preserving the complete testimony of Jesus and the prophets. Meanwhile, in Europe, the canon was sealed, and alternative texts were lost or relegated to footnotes. The true story they hid from you survived in whispers, in fragments cited by early church fathers, only to be condemned. But Ethiopia's isolation became its strength. The Ark of the Covenant, claimed to be an axiom, symbolizes this guardianship. It's not just an artifact, it's a metaphor for containing what others rejected. You are witnessing a miracle of preservation. When Western explorers and scholars finally reached Ethiopia in the 19th and 20th centuries, they were stunned. They found a Bible with 81 books, including texts they thought were myth. The discovery was like finding a lost continent of faith. But the real bombshell was what these books said about Jesus. And that revelation is about to unfold, starting with the primary evidence that rewrites his story. Let's examine the primary evidence. The Ethiopian Bible includes books like 1 Enoch, Jubilees, the books of Maccabees, and others absent from most Bibles. 1 Enoch, for instance, is quoted in the New Testament book of Jude, yet it was excluded from the canon. Why? Because it details angelic interactions, apocalyptic visions, and a pre-existent Messiah. In Jubilees, you get a retelling of Genesis and Exodus with emphasis on calendar, law, and heavenly tablets. These texts provide context that enriches the story of Jesus. For example, Enoch's visions of the Son of Man directly influence Jesus' own title and mission. The true story they hid from you is that Jesus' teachings are rooted in this older, broader tradition. When Jesus speaks of the kingdom of heaven, he's invoking concepts from these books. Imagine reading a biography of a famous person but missing their childhood diaries. That's what happened with Jesus. The Ethiopian Bible gives you those diaries. It describes Jesus' early years, his miracles as a child, his profound wisdom even as a boy. These narratives were considered too miraculous, too human, or too challenging. But they survived. And now you have access. But wait, there's more. The most shocking accounts are yet to come, hidden in testimonies that were almost lost forever. Hidden testimony emerges from texts like the Infancy Gospel of Thomas, which is part of Ethiopian tradition, though not in all canons. It depicts Jesus as a child with divine powers, forming birds from clay and bringing them to life, healing the sick, and even causing controversy. This Jesus is both wondrous and unsettling. He's not the gentle baby in a manger. He's a prodigy who challenges religious authorities and reveals his identity gradually. The true story they hid from you includes these moments that show Jesus' humanity and divinity intertwined in ways that were too raw for the institutional church. Why? Because they suggest that divinity is accessible, that miracles are natural to those aligned with God. In the Ethiopian Bible, Jesus' baptism is described with celestial phenomena, and his transfiguration connects to Enoch's transformations. You see a Jesus who is part of a cosmic lineage, fulfilling prophecies from these ancient texts. His resurrection isn't just an event, it's the climax of a battle between light and darkness that spans epochs. You were meant to know this because it makes your faith dynamic, alive. But the church fathers feared that such stories would lead to confusion or mysticism outside their control. So they censored them. Yet in Ethiopia, they became core to devotion. And now you're learning what they protected. But the implications go deeper than history. They point to the keepers who risked everything. The keepers of this truth are the Ethiopian Orthodox Christians, especially the monks and priests who have safeguarded these manuscripts for centuries. Picture a monastery at dawn. A monk unlocks a chest, removes a parchment wrapped in cloth, and begins to chant from it. He knows that this book contains words that could get him killed in other times and places, but here it's sacred. These communities have maintained rituals, fasts and prayers that incorporate the full canon. They see themselves as guardians of the original, complete Christian faith. The true story they hid from you was never hidden from them. It's their daily bread. They celebrate festivals based on Jubilee's calendar, and they revere Enoch as a prophet. You are connecting with a lineage that refused to compromise. If you're realizing you're not alone in this hunger for hidden truth, share this journey. There are others searching. They need to find this path. You might be the one who leads them here. These keepers faced invasions, droughts, and pressures to conform, but they held fast. Their secrecy wasn't for exclusion. It was for preservation until the world was ready. And now you're part of that readiness. But how did this secret reach the modern world? The answer involves adventure, danger, and academic upheaval that will astonish you. Modern discovery began in the 18th and 19th centuries with European travelers like James Bruce, who brought back copies of Ethiopian manuscripts. Scholars were astounded. Texts like 1 Enoch, known only through references, were now available in full. Translations revealed content that challenged established theology. For instance, Enoch's description of the Messiah as a pre-existent heavenly being influenced New Testament Christology. But this connection had been downplayed. The true story they hid from you started to resurface. In the 20th century, the Dead Sea Scrolls discovery included fragments of Enoch and Jubilees, confirming their antiquity and importance in Second Temple Judaism. This validated the Ethiopian tradition as preserving authentic ancient texts. Suddenly, Jesus' world became richer and more complex. Scholars began to reassess the development of Christian doctrine. Why were these texts excluded? Politics, power, and the desire for a unified, manageable faith. Ethiopia's guarded secret was now a scholarly bombshell. But it wasn't just academics. Spiritual seekers started to explore these texts for deeper meaning. You are living in a time when this knowledge is accessible like never before. But with access comes responsibility. What do these revelations mean for your understanding of Jesus? The deeper truth is even more transformative, and it's about to hit you. The deeper truth is theological and mystical. The Ethiopian Bible presents a Jesus who is deeply embedded in Jewish apocalyptic thought and angelology. He is the Son of Man from Enoch's visions, the incarnate Word who bridges heaven and earth. This isn't a different Jesus. It's a more complete one. The true story they hid from you enriches his mission. He came not just to save individuals, but to restore the entire cosmic order disrupted by the fall of angels. His death and resurrection are part of a larger divine plan that includes the judgment of celestial beings and the renewal of creation. You start to see Christianity as a cosmic drama where you have a role. This perspective empowers you. It suggests that your spiritual journey is part of this grand narrative. The church authorities suppress this because it gives too much agency to the believer. It makes faith a direct encounter with the divine, bypassing institutional intermediaries. Ethiopia's guarded secret is that Jesus' story is your story too. You are meant to know this because it calls you to a higher purpose, but this knowledge comes with a challenge. Are you willing to see Jesus in this light? It requires letting go of simplified versions and embracing complexity. And that leads to a personal calling that will shake your soul. Your calling emerges from this revelation. If the true story of Jesus is more profound and cosmic, what does that mean for you? It means that your faith isn't just about belief, it's about participation. You are invited into the same mysteries that Jesus embodied. The Ethiopian Bible shows that Jesus accessed heavenly realms and taught his disciples to do the same. You were meant to know this because it awakens your spiritual potential. Imagine praying with the awareness that you are joining choirs of angels, or living with the knowledge that your actions contribute to cosmic restoration. This isn't fantasy. It's the hidden tradition that survived against all odds. The true story they hid from you is now yours to live. But how? By studying these texts, by seeking communities that honor this fullness, by allowing your understanding of Jesus to expand. Your soul has always yearned for this completeness. Now you have the key. The evidence is waiting for you in ancient manuscripts, in the practices of Ethiopian Christians, and in the resonance within your own heart. But there's tangible proof, physical traces that affirm this truth, and they are more accessible than you think, yet fiercely guarded. Physical traces abound. In Ethiopia, manuscripts like the Garima Gospels, dating back to the 4th or 5th century, are beautifully illuminated and preserved. They contain canonical and non-canonical texts. Monasteries house libraries with thousands of manuscripts, many untranslated. Archaeologists have found inscriptions and artifacts that reflect the unique Ethiopian Christian culture. The true story they hid from you is written in ink on vellum, carved in stone, woven into tapestries. You can see it with your own eyes. For example, the Church of St. Mary of Zion in Axum claims to hold the Ark of the Covenant, symbolizing the presence of God's Word. These physical traces are not just relics, they are witnesses to a living tradition. Ethiopia's guarded secret is palpable, but accessing these sites is challenging. They are protected, often requiring permission and respect. This protection is necessary because these treasures have been threatened by theft, war, and neglect. Yet they endure. You are part of a generation that can digitally access these manuscripts online, visit museums, or even travel to Ethiopia. The evidence is there, waiting for your engagement. But not everyone welcomes this discovery. The opposition has been fierce throughout history, and it reveals a dark truth about power. The opposition came from within the church itself. From early councils like Laodicea and Carthage that listed approved books, to medieval popes who condemned apocryphal texts, to Reformation leaders who further narrowed the canon, the pressure to suppress was relentless. Why? Because these texts threatened doctrinal control. They offered alternative visions of Jesus, salvation, and authority. The true story they hid from you was deemed heretical because it empowered individuals and marginalized institutions. In some cases, possession of these books could lead to excommunication or worse. Ethiopia faced external pressures too. Missionaries from other Christian denominations tried to impose their canons, but Ethiopian orthodoxy resisted. This opposition reveals a pattern. Truth is often guarded by the few against the many. Now you know what they feared. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you accept the sanitized version or embrace the full, dangerous truth? Your decision matters because it affects not just your faith, but the legacy of this hidden story. And there's one final revelation that ties it all together, a revelation that will demand your response. Your decision is urgent. You've seen the evidence, heard the testimonies, understood the suppression. Now you stand at a crossroads. Will you let this revelation transform you? The true story they hid from you is a gift, but it requires courage to receive. It means re-evaluating what you were taught, questioning authorities, and seeking deeper spiritual truths. You were meant to know this because it aligns with the hunger for authenticity in your soul. If this revelation is reshaping your understanding, don't let it end here. Return. Dive deeper. This channel exists to uncover what was buried. Subscribe, because the forbidden texts we're bringing to light next will complete what you've started today. Share this with others who are searching. Your decision to engage keeps this truth alive. But before you choose, there's a final piece of revelation that will cement everything. Stay with me for the last unveiling. It will show you why this matters more than ever, and why you were always meant to be part of this story. The final unveiling brings it full circle. The Ethiopian Bible reveals that Jesus of Nazareth was not just a historical figure, but a cosmic key. His life, teachings, death, and resurrection are part of a divine narrative that includes all of creation, angels, humans, and the material world. The true story they hid from you is that you are invited into this narrative. Jesus' true story is one of empowerment, mystery, and direct connection with the divine. Ethiopia's guarded secret is now yours. You were meant to know this because it fulfills a deep spiritual need for wholeness. As you leave this journey, remember, the preserved texts, the faithful keepers, and the uncovered truths all point to a Jesus who is more alive, more relevant, and more revolutionary than you ever imagined. Embrace this knowledge. Let it transform your faith into a living, dynamic encounter. The story doesn't end here. It begins with you. Go forth with this truth and let it shine. You were made for this. Now act on it.